So use our camera thing here for a minute as like a tape, as though it's a tape recorder. But like the video, you see everything. Watch before LaRouche speaks at that, the woman who did it's in answer to a question by I guess and I guess from and she and but it's something that the question relates to like something we talked about in the videos we made in our channel about the system, about what persons like me encountered in that the way in which we encountered it was in the study of what like at that school they're sending the people to the UN and doing like some form of like social science, and then like um and your narrator's like complaint with the psychoanalysis movement and on. And then in this context she's talking about economics, right, and this issue of like the systematic denial of the existence of an objective reality. And right, they're asking him to speak on that, like with regard to what's happening in economics departments. And I'm not an economist, but the thing is that I'm not someone who I did take economics and political economy of development, but that's not my subject. I was just there, taking the classes. But the whole thing about what that means, that when he speaks, he says, right, it has. He says it right. This statistical thing and like doing things like that are represented by math formulas, but are like divorced from what's actually happening. He's talking about with regard to economics, but it's interesting what he said at the beginning. Is what is he talks about the issue of like causality, which is something I like which is something we put up a lot of like on the Facebook page, which was might be why you sent me that other thing. I mean, it's what it's the elegant way that the guy who wrote that cultural critique book like put it about the psychoanalysis. That whole book's about this type of social science, which now includes like economics. And he said like, well, they're operating in what he called like he said they're operating in a as though they're in some kind of academic preschool where they believe that if something is where they're using their like statistical things and bubble charts and such that they don't realize like that just because an explanation is consistent with observable reality, like doesn't mean that it's accurate at all. It just means that's one explanation for what's happening. But the way he says they like as though they don't know if you can come up with a causal explanation that matches, like that could be why it matches what's going on in reality, then that's enough. And he's like, right, they're in some kind of academic preschool where they don't know, as he puts it, like a causal explanation also has to be differential, has to actually be better than all the other possible explanations for why something's happening. So there's tons of stuff on that Facebook page about what I encountered with the psychoanalysis thing. See somebody doing a behavior, say, Bob, maybe they're doing that because of this, and that would be one reason. Don't care what's actually why that's happening. They have a explanation, and the way in which their scientific way of explaining it means you can't enter into the conversation. Even though if you say, well, no, that's one explanation for what's happening. But that doesn't mean it's correct. It just because it's consistent with observable reality isn't enough. IAC came down on me in the psychoanalysis place, but it also has to do with this. Again, what's going on at that graduate school? They send them off to the UN. If something can be justified empirically, meaning sort of scientifically, then you can do whatever you like, and the explanation for why things are happening can be as long, and you can't argue with it, even if with your own eyes you see. So, but that's harming people, or that doesn't, well, what's your empirical evidence that this is causing harm? Like what's happening isn't enough. It has to be provable with a math formula or something. And he's talking about the same thing going on in economics, and saying, which makes sense. It's all a branch. These are all branches of the social sciences now, which is apparently like a recent development. The way they're doing this, and if you say, geez, like this type of economics, you're taking a guess as to why different things are happening, as though you don't know why they're happening. But what's happening is the physical economy has disintegrated. Nothing going on is none of the things you're studying aren't even taking place in the real economy anymore. So you don't live in reality. That seems to be going on in the whole. That's what's going on at our universities, and he's talking about it with regard to economics. That's interesting because that makes sense. Right. That does make sense. But also right that you wouldn't, and that you would. That's why people wouldn't have that. They have that tunnel vision where they're not looking at like structural changes in the economy. They just be like forecasting what could happen or what might be happening, why it's happening. Like they're not in reality. It has to do with these like formulas on blackboards, and it's divorced from the physical economy is what he's saying with how it's being. What's happening in economics, and why does that make sense to me? Well, I did get to the one part of the political economy of development class, which, like I said, people who sort of knew what they were talking about would come from other countries. These girls from Latin America said like, we reject the discourse you're using to talk about it. It's like that's insane. But like they did have us read some of the material that's like the foundation for this neoclassical, this neoliberal thing that's been moving underway. And right, it had one reason it was difficult to read, like, oh, this is the foundation of the neoliberal project, this kind of thing. And right, it's not just writing and this, it's like it's mostly like a lot of math and bubble charts. But like, so you don't know how to enter into the conversation. Certainly know what's happening and why it's happening economically, and things like the removal of capital controls or something like that makes sense. What it's doing and the damage it's causing, but no, where does it come from? Like, yeah, it was like I couldn't really follow it that much because it was like a lot of bubble charts and formulas. So you can't say, well, don't you realize what happened? Like, we can't build the green the infrastructure, and we can't have the green technology because we're under threat of capital flight. No, we're studying why things happen. You're not allowed to just state the obvious. You have to read this on, look at these math formulas, and unless you can tell us what's wrong with that, then you're not allowed to comment. Is sort of what apparently is going on from what And so he talks about that. The rest of it is really interesting. I wish they taught, what he's saying about, I wish that was what an economics class was like. What he's saying, like, that would be the way you'd want to learn about economics. He's talking about, like, the physical economy and physical materials, and, like, that would be the way you'd want to learn it. I took a, sort of college economics class just to have that, just so I could take the political economy and development. And right, it's a lot. They're not talking about the physical economy, but they're, I memorized a lot of formulas, but they don't talk about what he's saying. I wish that's how an economics class was. That would be great. Then your friend who's a creative writer would have learned something that didn't just All right, I just want to make a note in here. Like, this is like a note as I'm trying. I don't want to just listen to something and then try to act like I know about it or something. But I really think this is important. Personally, it seems important, and it seems like a good topic for us to start to look into.